Modebo, Bolega Caso, Modebo, Iagolawo, Gomalia, Iagolawo, Gomalia, oh mama, 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 oh mama. Oh mama, oh mama, oh mama. Sinon la mer, il y a non tava fada mer. Sinon la mer, il y a non tava fada mer. Fija avançaye, sao pio pay. Fija avançaye, sao pio pay. Oh mama, oh mama, oh mama. Oh mama, oh mama, oh mama. Oh mama, oh mama, oh mama, oh mama, oh mama, oh mama. Sinon la mer, il y a non tava fada mer. Sinon la mer, il y a non tava fada mer. Vija avançaye, sao pio paye. Vija avançaye, sao pio paye. Oh mama, oh mama, oh mama. Oh mama, 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 oh mama. Olega caso, Modebo, Olega caso, Modebo, Iagolawo, Gomalia, Iagolawo, Gomalia. Oh mama, 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 oh mama.
Dobré odpoledne. Dobré odpoledne, dámy a pánové, vážení hosté. Jsme v centru dění Mezinárodního festivalu spisovatelů Praha, jeho 28. ročníku. Vítám také příznivce literatury, kteří sedí u internetového vysílání České televize. Vítám vás všechny. Dnešní odpoledne je věnována literatuře, teda především poezii, samozřejmě, že literatuře. Máme dva světy. Portugalsko a Českou republiku. 2 světy, které od sebe dělí 3000 kilometrů vzdušnou čarou mezi Lisabonem a Prahou. Tyto 2 světy se naprosto jinak vyvíjely. Vytvářela se zde jiná kultura. A co nás čeká? Čeho budeme teď svědky? Jak se vlastně život, myšlení, veškerá tvorba, problémy této země zrcadlí v poezii? To magické je před námi. Přeji vám příjemné odpoledne.
Luísa Amaral. Portugalská básnířka a překladatelka. Narodila se v Lisabonu. Přednáší na univerzitě v Portu. Její verše elegantní jako poezie Emily Dickinsonové jsou inspirovány tématem zpovědi, nekonečného bytí v bezesných nocích, usazeninami v životech druhých. Projevují snahu nalézt novou rovnováhu mezi pohlavími. Luísa Amaral není jen akademička v oblasti angloamerické poezie, ale zabývá se také feminismem. Autorku uvádí básnířka Marie Iljašenko. Marie Iljašenko prošla zkušenostmi a prožitky různých kultur, což se také odráží v její dosavadní tvorbě. Narodila se roku 1983 v Kyjevě v rodině s českými a polskými kořeny, ale žije a tvoří v Praze. Veřejnost zaujala už svou první sbírkou Osyp míří na jih.
Festivalu spisovatelů. Vítám vás na čtení Luísy Amaral. Je to mimo jiné skvělá příležitost poslechnout si poezii v portugalštině, což se nám nestává v Praze často. Portugalština je pozoruhodný jazyk, protože postrádá písmena K, Y a V, ale za to má spoustu zvuků, které my Češi neumíme ani vyslovit. Je to také dobrá příležitost připomenout si českého a portugalského básníka Františka Listopada. Je to přesně rok a 5 dnů, kdy zemřel. František Listopad byl nejenom skvělý básník, spisovatel, divadelník a novinář, ale byl důležitou spojkou mezi Českem a Portugalskem. Listopad rád obě země srovnával a říkal, že si jsou podobné. Že mají přibližně stejnou rozlohu, stejný počet obyvatel a stejný pocit, že na ně Evropa čeká, anebo možná číhá za rohem. Já si myslím, že trochu podcenil důležitost oceánu a zámořských kolonií, takže kdo ví, jak to je. Listopad v jednom rozhovoru také s nadsázkou řekl, že v Portugalsku nikdo nemá hlad, protože lidé tam mají světlo a pomeranče. Když jsem poprvé četla básně Luísy Amaral, musela jsem na tu větu často myslet, protože její básně jsou skutečně plné světla. Je to světlo, které přináší radost hned z kraje dne, které ale má za úkol především osvětlovat. Čili vynášet na povrch všechno krásné, pomeranče, oceán, ale také všechno špatné, bolest, války, zlo. Tedy to, před čím je snadnější a příjemnější oči zavřít. Luísa Amaral napsala celou řadu básní, dostala celou řadu ocenění a ocitla se na stránkách učebnic, ale oči má stále otevřené. Milí hosté, přivítejte Luísu Amaral. Welcome to Prague. It's good to have you here.
Děkuji. It's a big pleasure to be here First of all, Yekwi again. I would like to thank, there are a few people to whom I have to thank and I want to thank. First of all, Michael March, the person who invited me here, the person to whom I said that I couldn't come the whole time and who still said that he wanted me to come. So thank you very much, Michael, and my congratulations from the bottom of my heart from this wonderful, wonderful festival. Also, I want to salute all my fellow poets. I would like to thank Maria Ilyashenko, who is going to talk with me, to speak with me about my poetry and about poetry and the world in general. I would like to thank Maria Arikova, who has translated me. Thank you, Maria, for the translations, wonderful translations, which you have done. I would like to thank our Portuguese ambassador, who is here, Dra. Manuela Franco. Thank you very much for being here, for having come. And our representative of Instituto Camões, Dr. Guilherme Figueiredo, who is also here. Guilherme, Yekwi. So Yekwi to all of you. I don't know how you say, thank you very much. Yekwi most.
Děkuji moc, správně.
Yekwi most, okay. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit.
Yeah, let's start with some poems.
Oh, shall I start to read?
Yeah, it would be nice to start with some poems.
In that case, I'm going to start to read. I'll start with a poem which is titled in Portuguese, What's in a Name? Its title, it comes, as you all know, from Romeo and Juliet. It's Juliet who says to Romeo at a certain time in the play, what's in a name? If the rose didn't smell, could we give the rose another name, and would it smell the same if he did not go through with the name of rose? And of course, this is a rhetorical question because there's no way that we can know whether the rose would smell the same if it had a different name. What we do know is that in the times that we are going through, having certain names is very important for the good and for the bad. So I'm going to read the poem. Pergunto o que há num nome, de que espessura é feito se atendido, que guerras o amparam paralelas, linhagens, chãos servis, raças domadas por algumas sílabas, alicerces da história nas leis que se forjaram a fogo e labareda. Extirpado o nome ficará o amor, ficarás tu e eu mesmo na morte, mesmo que em mito só. E mesmo o mito, escuta, a nossa história breve que alguns lerão como matéria inerte, ficará para o sempre do humano. E outros o hão de sempre recolher, quando o seu século dele carecer. E meu amor, força maior de mim, seremos para eles como a rosa, não, como o seu perfume, ingovernado, livre. Another poem. Alepo, Calais, Lesbos, ou, por outras palavras. Alepo, Calais, Lesbos, ou, por outras palavras, quero falar do que antes eram ruas, avenidas bordadas a casas e palmeiras, dos capetos que outrora, em imaginação nossa, voavam de magia e que agora se esfumam de outras formas, as mais rasas, ou do tempo da poesia antes, quando os barcos entravam os guios e a palavra se fazia à nitidez de imagem, da violência depois e deste tempo, porta de entrada em rudes barcas para a violência em séculos agora, ou ainda dos carreiros de gente a parecerem oceanos, a lentes de distância, grandes planos, mas que, partida a gente em gente singular, sobrem nomes inteiros, gostos próprios, distintos sofrimentos, músculos de sorrir, diferentes todos. Ah, se a amplíssima lente se transformasse estreita em microscópio de vida, do que vejo de longe e no ecrã, quero falar não usando redondilha, versos redondos, uma sintaxe igual e certa. Quero estas linhas, em que falo das outras linhas, feitas de outra matéria, real e dura, explodida, essa, detida por coletes e armas cor de fumo, e ao lado dos oceanos de gente, os sedimentos que vivem noutras gentes, as vizinhas a mim, o ódio construído lentamente, arrasar a abominação. Do que chega em olhar, das camadas de séculos em que tudo parece mercadoria fácil de esquecer, ou então que o desterro nos ficou raso aos genes e só ele é lembrado e ele sozinho serve para existir o horror. De tudo isso não há forma de verso que me chegue, porque nada chega de conforto ou paz. Mas que o furor persista e que neste recanto ao canto desta Europa, mesmo sem vergonha de estar quente e longe e protegida sob uma lente amplíssima que só deixa passar finíssimas meia dúzia de imagens, ou, por outras palavras, a cegueira, mesmo sem palavras, o furor.
Thank you. One more,
One more.
please.
Okay, a different one, a castanha. Rasguei, como se fosse um pensamento, uma castanha brava apanhada do chão, a sua casca acesa e perturbante. A castanha era brava no sentido mais breve da palavra, aguerrida castanha muito jovem, que lutou contra a força dos meus dedos. Ergui depois, vencido, o corpo da castanha, usando como berço as minhas mãos. Despido, incandescente, polimento de cera, cor realmente nomeando a coisa. Em desvio, como acontece em tanta natureza, a zona branca destoando o resto. Uma face de Deus, uma fronteira, um sobressalto em face do igual. Hesitante, pousei-a junto às folhas nuas e ficámos as duas como um pensamento na nossa dividida solidão.
Thank you so much for reading. I would say that Portuguese language is really very beautiful. And I want to ask, it is said that Lisbon is a city of cafes and great coffee.
Excuse me.
Lisbon is a
Yes.
city of cafes and great coffee. And my first question is, how do you like coffee in Prague?
How do I... Coffee? Mm-hmm. Ah, you mean espresso? Mostly. That's what I drink most
It's
in
real
Portugal.
coffee.
Yes. Well, the other day I went, I love it. I simply because I adore cafe. I adore coffee, so I adore cafes. That's where I write. I come from a generation that used to study a lot in cafes. That's the generation before the revolution in Portugal. Before 1974, we studied in cafes. We wrote a lot in cafes. I write in cafes, in coffee shops. I love coffee shops. What happens is that I can't bear neither music nor loud music or TV, not even radio, nothing, but the sound of the people, it is, in a way, it shelters me.
So
is
you
as
need
if
some
it's-
silent cafe.
Exactly. It doesn't bother me at all,
Yeah.
the noise of the world, it's the noise of people around me, that's quite all right. So yes, I love the espresso in Prague, and I also like very much what you call the Americano, so that's the...
Yeah, I started with that question because actually I know that you like work in cafes.
I do.
And also I know that you always live near the sea. And I would say that this is how we imagine Portuguese poet. And my question is, what else is crucial for you as for person and as for poet?
Well, to begin with, I think we who work with words, to be attentive to the world mostly, that's especially how it can be. For example, I never take pictures. I think that's an important thing. When I came here, I arrived 2 days ago, and Anna brought me a guide. She brought me all around Prague, which is beautiful. She showed me Prague. She's a guide. She gave me a guided tour, and it was extraordinary. But at a certain point, she asked me, "You don't have a camera? You don't take a picture, a photograph?" And I said, "No, I don't." And I never take. Once in a while, I try to take something with my iPhone, but they just don't come or something. So There's no use. I hate photographs. What I do need is to focus on details, on small, very small things. Sometimes it's a gesture, sometimes it's a smile, sometimes it's something more violent, like a person lying on the street, you know. Sometimes it's an image on the TV, for example, that poem about Aleppo, Calais, Lesbos, it's precisely that, what you see in the screen, you know, and that lens, you know, at least if that lens could become microscopic and it could see the people one by one instead of seeing them, you know, in this immensity in these queues of people trying to enter in the old continent, in our old continent. So that is crucial for me. For me, it's crucial, the sea. Yes, you know, I come from a country which is surrounded on the one side by Spain, on the other side by the sea. I mean, there's nothing more that we have on the left side. We have, of course, on the left side, if you look at the map like this, right, on the left side we have the sea, then on the right side and a little bit up we have Spain. There was a time when people kept saying in Portugal, because we have to arm ourselves, you know. I used to say, joking, well, if the Spanish wanted to come, you know, all they would need to do, woo, and we would all run. And run where? To the sea. We would probably, you know, plunge in the sea, because that's that's the other way that we can go to. Maybe that's why we became a country of navigators, of sailors, you know. Probably, but I do need the sea. I lived for 3 years in the United States, in the East Coast, in New England, and I lived in Rhode Island. And once a week in Westerly, so that's like, what, half an hour or so from the beach, and I had to go to the beach. My house, it's in a small, very small town in Lessa de Palmeira. It's called Lessa de Palmeira. It's a very, very small town near Porto. I don't want to live, I never wanted to live in Porto. I have a house in Lisbon, an apartment in Campo de Ourique, which is a nice place in Lisbon, but I don't want to live there. I don't want to go to Lisbon. I love to live in this very, very, very small town that no one knows practically, because it's by the sea. All I need to do, I walk for 3 or 4 minutes and I can see the ocean and I can see the sea. And let me tell you that the ocean of the north is not the ocean of Algarve. You know, it's a true sea. It's a very brave, you know, and aggressive sea. Foaming, full of foam, and it's very beautiful. So yes, what is crucial for me, it's also to look at things, and also the words, naturally. It's this enchantment which I have not so far, and I'm very happy about that, lost with the words and with the world still.
Yes, and I would say that many of your poems are based on really trivial situations, like trivial situations, for example, like that one about chestnut we heard. Or I love the poem about mosquito who was martyred after he sat on a piece of paper.
Excuse me, that's a poem that's titled, just for people to know, Murder is Easy.
Yeah, maybe next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it seems that there is some situation and then some idea or essence come. And it seems that banality could be a great resource of your poetry. Would you agree with that?
I would, although I wouldn't use the word banality, you know. First of all, because what banal and banality has for me, you know, that very strong,
life.
Yes, everyday life, you know, triviality maybe, you know, or, everyday life, I think, you know. Everything is, how can I say, poetizável, that is, everything can be put into poetry. I have poems about onions, I have poems about potato, I have that poem about mosquito, right? That is a mosquito that I have murdered with my nail on the table of a coffee shop. But I think that all of that can serve and it's useful to speak, and you can use that to speak about the world and about, I mean, an onion, for example, I use some onions in my poetry. I love the onion because the image of the onion, because the onion has no center, you know. I mean, it has only layers, and you can.
So is it a metaphor?
It is a metaphor. It's not that I think, you know. As you know, you're a poet yourself, so I don't say to myself, no, I'm going to write a poem about an onion. Now I'm going to use the word onion in the poem. This doesn't happen. You just use it. And you can only think about things after you have written the poem, naturally, right? It's only after that you can that you can be, that is, you can only speak about poetics after you have written the poem.
Yes.
Right? Poetics comes always, theory comes always after. Creation, always, always, always. And something else, which is a little, can be seen as something a little bit aside, but I think it's connected. I think that poetry always predicted the world in a sense. Poets always knew before theorists, you know, before the theory was done. So this was to say that I don't think I'm going now to use the onion, but the fact is that I do use onions in my poetry. And I have like 4 or 5 poems that use this image of the onion, because I like the onion, you know. It's not like, for example, an apple. An apple has a center, but the onion has layers that you take, and it has no center that you take, you know, you peel and peel and peel, and it's infinite in a way, you know. Well, it's not infinite because nothing is infinite except the universe, and we are finite. We can only look at, we can only imagine, let's say, ourselves like that, and the onion too. But I think that, so that's what happens, you know.
So it seems that poetry can not only describe reality, but also change it or sublime it.
It can. Poetry never describes. I don't think poetry never describes reality. It's always. It is as if sometimes, you know, and I go to schools with children, and what I do sometimes is I use this notion. You have a glass full of water, and if you put, I'm not going to do that here, of course, and if you put a pencil, besides I don't have a pencil, I only have a pen, and I'm not going to do that with a pen. If you put a pencil here, and if you look through the glass, right, the image that comes is a refracted image, right? It's a little broken. Right? The image of the glass is a little broken. And I think that that's what literature is. It is never totally unconnected from life. There's always a thread that connects literature with life and with the world. And at the same time, it's in a different kind of level. It has to be, you know, in a different kind of level. So in that sense, it never describes, because if it uses images or metaphors or whatever, you know, if the onion can be an image that can summon so many, that can elicit lots of ideas, lots of other images, it's not a description. A description would be, you know, something factual. So poetry never works in that. Even when it is narrative poetry, even when it speaks about a broken bowl, like last poem that we're going to read.
And do you think that poetry has some real power?
Oh yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
How
That's
it works?
why I think, you know, I mean, in dictatorships, poets go to jail, right? Any kind of dictatorships, and they have no weapons. They don't use guns. They don't have guns. They don't have swords, and yet they go to jail. You know, this still happens. Why? The only thing they have is words. Well, words, as we know, in a way, they reify the world. I mean, they are extremely important. We make the laws with words, right? A word can kill. A word can redeem. A word has an immense power. In the case of poetry, I think, because it is in a way a contradiction of the so-called language of the powerful, let's call, or the official, let's call it. Okay, the official language. The official language should be as precise as possible, whereas poetry always works in this ambiguous territory. You know, you never know exactly where it's elusive. It's precisely this elusiveness which is, it's at the same time it's elusive, and it can be very sharp. And it's precise that sharpness and elusiveness that is threatening at the same time, you know, to the official language, to a dictator, for example, or to the dictatorships. I'll give you an example. I think that we spoke about that the other day, or it was in an interview, I don't know. We have a wonderful Portuguese poet called Sofia de Melo Breiner, and during our Portuguese dictatorship in the times of Salazar in the 60s, 50s, 60s, she wrote a poem. He was an old man, in those days, in the 60s already, you know, in the end, you always had this, old, you know, this, you always looked old, heavy, etc., you know, very, and she has this beautiful image that goes like this: o velho abutre afia as suas asas. That is the old vulture, the bird, you know, the vulture sharpens his wings. The poem was forbidden, you know. Now, the poem doesn't say, it describes, what does it describe? A bird, a vulture, you know, that sharpens his wings. Why was the poem? They could feel, they could sense that there was something dangerous in this, you know, and that's why they forbid the poem, you know. So that's what I think. Poetry has the power. Yes, poetry can be a motor of resistance because it can move us as well. It moves us, you know, and in both senses, you know. I mean, in the sense that it moves us, it makes us act, and it moves us from the inside as an emotion, you know, as we say.
So can
from
it
the
conquer
emotion,
evil?
point
What
of
do
view.
you think? Can it conquer evil?
Can it?
Conquer evil.
It can, I don't know if it can, at least it can oppose evil. It can resist evil. Yes, yes, I believe it can resist evil, and it can resist, it can be, as I said,
Or it's more...
it's some, sorry, can I just say something very, very small? We were discussing this at lunch, and I remember that image, you know, an idea that it's not only poetry, it's art in general. What we did when, the first time that the human beings put some flowers on the graves of their dead people, you know. If you want to contain the disease, if you want to be careful about the disease, I mean, so that the body doesn't spread, the dead body, the corpse, that is, doesn't spread diseases, the only thing you need to do is to dig a hole, you know, throw the body in the hole, and that's it, you know, and cover the hole with earth, with the earth, and that's, you know, and that's enough. But why this need to leave some kind of, for example, you know, something that belonged to that person, or even this gesture of leaving flowers with the dead? I mean, it's a way both. I think that it serves two purposes. One, which has to do with beauty, the other one with memory, and that's what poetry is too, a repository of memories. You know, repository of memories. And in these worlds where there are so many forces trying to eradicate and to delete the memories. This has happened in Portugal. I was in Badajoz the other day, you know, Badajoz, a Spanish city, which was very, very, very punished by Franco. It was one of the first cities that he used Badajoz as an example. Franco, the Spanish dictator in the Civil War, he used Badajoz, this little city, as an example for the rest of Spain. And what did he do? He shot, I think it was about 2,000 people in the bullfight plaza, and to set an example. And the other day, the mayor, I went there last year, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I had gone there, the mayor had covered the walls of where the holes of the guns were still marked, and he gave the order to cover the walls because he said enough memory. And there had been these immense demonstrations in Badajoz, in the streets. People wanted those holes there precisely so that the Spanish people did not forget what had happened during the Civil War, so that it didn't repeat, you know, so that they don't repeat. No, it didn't serve anything. It wasn't of no consequence. He still was able to cover those holes. Now, what I mean is that this is a way of erasing memories. So poetry has this function as well, if it has any function.
Sorry for interruption. I just wanted to ask.
I'm sorry.
No.
I speak too much, I told you.
No, it's
I
great.
speak too
it's
much.
Great.
I'm very sorry.
I just wondered, this fighting against evil, is a task for poetry, or maybe it's a task for a poet? What do you think? What the relationship is between them?
But I mean, the poetry is written by, I mean, it's a well, first of all, the poet is it's a task for all of us, right? This fight, for me, as citizens, is the task for all of us to resist evil, to fight evil. In the case of the poet, I'm not defending what the French would call littérature engagée, the engaged literature, you know, the one that, because that literature usually is dated, you know, as out there, I mean, and being dated, it becomes outdated, you know. I think that a poem, if it is a good poem, a very good poem, okay, it's the example of what's in, you know, this thing, what's in a name. This was by Romeo and Juliet, you know, and it had, within the context of the play, it had a certain meaning. The fact that it was brought to that I brought it to our days and wrote a poem titled What's in a Name, speaking about the fact that races can be subjugated because of their names, you know. People can be killed, murdered because they are called so and so. To be named Abdul, for example, in Trump's America, you know, can be, it has, as we all know, unfortunately, a certain meaning and a certain consequences from the real point of view. What was I saying before? Yes, so for me, a poem, the poetry that I truly cherish is that poetry that even though belonging to its time and having in its time having been a grammar, because if Shakespeare were alive, he wouldn't write today. He wouldn't write as he wrote in those days, you know. For example, or we could go, it's not only Shakespeare, all the poets, naturally, so it's a grammar, it's convention as well. Poetry is also convention, but being a grammar, being convention, being of its time, I think that the power of poetry is this, that in an extremely condensed way, for example, in 2 lines, it can contain a whole world or a whole something that, for example, prose or I've written a novel, so I know more or less what I am, but I'm mostly a poet. That prose, for example, needs more space. You know, if you are writing a novel, usually you need a little bit more space than if you're writing a poem. You know, so a poem has this power of condensation, has this power of saying a multitude through a very small body, you know. And poetry does something very strange with time, I think. A novel, for example, in the more conventional, I'm speaking about the conventional novel, usually follows a chronological order conventionally. I'm not speaking about, you know, please, we have novelists here. So I'm not saying that poetry is better than fiction. What I'm saying is that poetry does something interesting with time. You see the hummingbird, you know, that small bird that flies. Actually, there's a poet, Diana Bellesi, an Argentinian poet, who once called my attention to this. The hummingbird, you see that bird that goes, he is the only bird that flies forward and backwards. He flies and I think that, and he's a very tiny bird. I think that's exactly what poetry is, you know. A poem is that. In that very, very, very small body, because usually, you know, poems are tighter, smaller than a short story, for example. In that very small body, you know, it can contain, you know, past, present, future, everything, you know. So time, even time, and the notion of time becomes different in the poem.
I think now it's good to read some more poems. What do you think?
Okay, yes, certainly. And I'm sorry if I talk too much. Okay. Depois da castanha. So I'm going to read. Bifronte condição. Luxo de ter olhar, de ver desta janela elegante e atento aquele gato matizado a branco e a canela, luxo de prato doce e confortante, luxo do tempo a desdobrar-se, e de sentir calor junto a janeiro e a cada movimento. Do outro lado, ao fundo da janela, o lixo examinado atentamente por homem rente ao frio, tudo a tornar-se frio dentro das coisas, os movimentos crispados e cinzentos, de como é curto o tempo ou de como as palavras encurtam o dizer. O luxo de estar quente, um luxo absurdo, mas luxo verdadeiro, ao lado de janeiro, o mês bifronte, feito de duas faces, como nós, desatentos, fingidos, incultos habitantes deste planeta que, visto de um outro lado, se ele houver, por olhos outros, se eles existirem, há de parecer assim, bifronte. De um lado, a mansidão de amar e proteger, na outra face, a outra condição de olhar sem ver, por isso sem indulto, nem cósmica razão que nos redima. Terra de ninguém. Digo espaço, ou uma receita qualquer que seja em vez. Um espaço a sério, ou terra de ninguém, que não me chega ao conquistado à custa de silêncios, armários e cebolas perturbantes. A síncopes de mim construí um reduto, mas não chega. Nele definham borboletas e sonhos, e as mesmas cebolas, em vício, se repetem. Digo espaço, ou receita qualquer, em vez de mim. Mediterrâneo. Os mares de Homero deixaram de trazer esbeltas as suas naves. Em nome dos sem nome, continua. Por desertos de areia, desertos sem sentido, continua. Por rostos no deserto, os do sem nome ou rosto, continua. Ao fundo do deserto, diz-se gotas de sangue e grãos de areia, a esfinge no deserto, continua. No verdadeiro nome do espesso fluido que se diz vital, em toneladas certas, continua. Os divinos moinhos moendo devagar, fina farinha, inúteis mares de pó. And
Your first book was published when you were 33. Could you tell us a little bit what was before it? About your life before your first book?
I can't hear you very well, I'm sorry. My first book was published in 1990.
And I wonder what was before. Like, could you tell us a little bit about your life?
Before there was poetry. There was always poetry. Always. It was unpublished.
Okay.
But there was, I always wrote since I know myself.
So,
I mean, as I used
did
to
you
say,
write
always.
from
I always
childhood?
wrote. The thing is that, yes, I did not want to publish.
Mm-hmm. And why?
I think for two reasons. The first reason had to do, I thought to myself, this is absolutely true. I thought to myself, either this is good or this is very bad, because really I didn't see things very, when in those days, very much similar, to what I was writing then in the 1980s. Because that book of 1990, of course, it was written during the 1980s, the years, that decade of 1980, 1970, 1980. Then there was something else. I was afraid of losing what I thought was a relationship of innocence with the word. That is, I was afraid that if alien eyes would look at my poems and would start saying, because Luísa Amaral should write like this, or she should put this and that in her poems, she should do this, or she does this, and she, criticizing critics.
So did you afraid of critics, or it's not this situation? Did you afraid of criticism?
No, but I was afraid of critics. I wasn't afraid I was afraid that that might influence my future, the way that I would write later. I don't think it did, but it was something, some kind of superstition, call it, whatever you want. Then also, so I had lots of people who knew my poems, and they kept saying to me, you should publish, and Luísa, and I kept saying, I don't want to publish, I don't want to make a book, I don't want to organize a book. And finally it was someone, Maria Irene Ramalho, from the University of Coimbra, who was then supervising my MA on William Shakespeare, on King Lear, and I got some courage, and I showed her some poems, and she read and she said, oh my God, I like them very much. Who wrote them? And I said, it was me. That's the second thing. It's sometimes I didn't trust that I thought maybe they're good, maybe they're not, So she was very, very good critic, and she said, I like them very, very much. You should, and she started to haunt me with this. If you publish a book, I'll write you a preface for the book. If you publish a book, I write. So I sent the book to 3 publishing houses in Portugal. One of them actually answered me when the book was already going to be published, so a year after. And then there was a small publishing house from Coimbra who told me, we will publish you, but the rights, we have no money to give you, and the rights are all ours. I didn't even know what those things of the right. Anyway, I don't care very much about money, so I said, that's all right, no problem. Anyway, they went bankrupt 2 years after, this small publishing house. But they published my first book of poems, which had the title is Minha Senhora de Quê, which is Mistress of What, literally. But the title with which it was going to come was A Impossível Sarça, which means the impossible burning bush, like in the Bible, the burning bush. And in Portuguese, it's a very strange word, Impossível Sarça. And people didn't understand the title, so I changed the title. Anyway, so that's how it started. I published the first one, and then I didn't stop. So I have now 20 or something.
And you were 17 when the Revolution of Carnations began. It was the end of long authoritarian regime. Has it changed your life?
Oh yeah, it has changed.
Could you tell a little bit about it?
It has changed everyone's life in Portugal. Yes, I mean, of course, I was 17 years old, the best time of your life to be in a revolution. I think, it was the best time. Sometimes I think to myself, I am... when the 25th of April approaches something, I am a little childish in some things. And a side of me says, that's wonderful that I still am like this a little bit. And there was I think it was Ryan's Daughter, a very old movie. I don't know if I don't think you know it. And it had the song, it was the best time, it was. And I remember that song because it reminds me a lot, look, of the 25th of April, of that day in our life when my father came to get me from the high school. This was 10:30 in the morning, and he said to me, come on, let's go home, because Marcelo Caetano, Marcelo was the prime, we didn't have a prime minister, because it was our president of the council, that was the name, because he has fallen. And my question was, like Salazar, because I thought that he had really fallen on the floor, I didn't understand that what my father meant was the regime had fallen, And after that, it was really wonderful, because everything was possible. It was utopia. It was utopia, really. Everything was possible. There's no comparison, In 1974, people in my country, I live in Lessa de Palmeira, where I live, people still, even though I think it was already forbidden, but there was many people barefoot, children would go barefoot, in the streets. The level of people who could not read or write was immense in Portugal. I can't give you now the numbers exactly, but we had an immensity of people who could neither write nor read, and those who could write or read, I mean, practically it was as if they couldn't, because they only had, I think that Salazar was the only dictator who lowered the compulsory education from the 4th grade to the 3rd grade in the 50s. So this was abominable. I mean, there are things that I think that the name is abomination, and I think that in a way today neoliberalism, with the different kind of innuendo, is trying to do something similar, yes, with education. But I'm not going to go that way. No. Did I answer?
Yeah, you are not only a poet, writer, but you are also activist and a feminist.
Yeah.
So let's speak a little bit
Yeah,
about it.
I write in the newspaper once in a while. And,
I like the definition that the feminism is the highest form of humanism. Do you have your favorite one definition of a feminism?
Yeah, I think that
Why
if I
do we
were,
need feminism?
yes, if I were to, if you would ask me, if you ask me for an expression for feminism, the first thing that I would think about would be human rights. You know, it's only a question of human rights, and it's very, very, very complicated for me to believe that half of the human species can still. I mean, that there are laws which are different, you know, in some countries for half of the human species. I really don't understand, or even the so-called gender roles, you know, that women have to be in the house. I mean, that's how I was raised. That's how in my country, that's how in my country we would learn, you know, women would stay in the house, would raise the children, and the father, and this is heavy for men as well. So the parent, the father, the man would go out either into politics or get a job or something. You would be the one, the responsible person, you know, for the house. So, and that's very complicated for a small child to internalize too. You know, I think masculinity is a very complicated thing to internalize. I think that the fear of feminism, so what I'm saying is that I think that feminism, in my view, from my point of view, can be beneficial both for women and for men, not only for women, but also for men, because to me, anti-feminism is also that sexist attitudes, and within sexist attitudes, for example, I include those that say a man doesn't cry. A man should be strong, you know, that idea. Come on, why shouldn't a man cry? Why can't a man cry? You know, they have the same kind of apparatus, you know. I don't know how you say in English, os canais lacrimais that women do. So they get moved as well, you know. I mean, they've suffered too. So why don't they cry? Why should a little child, for example, a little boy be told, even in the movies nowadays, we see this, the father goes to the war in a movie, goes to the war, he leaves his wife, they say goodbye, they crying, Baba, she's crying, now you're going to the war, and the father, he turns to the little child, the little boy, and he says to him, now you take care of your mother, you are now the man of the house. This is a very heavy thing to say to a little boy, you know, you are now the man of the house, because the little boy he needs to be protected. He cannot be made responsible for anything. You know, what he needs truly is, we all need protection, and we are all, our condition is one of vulnerability. We are all very, very vulnerable. We, men, women and men. So vulnerability, I think it's a condition common to us all. And I think that feminism is not against men.
Yeah,
this is
in
something
my
that
country,
I would
for
like
example,
to stress.
there are
You
a
know,
lot of people.
it's frightening because of that. People think it's against
Yeah, a lot
men.
of people are afraid of feminism, and it is strange because they used to say women and men should be equal, women should have more rights, but I'm not a feminist. And it sounds strange for me. Why people are afraid of feminism?
Because I think that it's frightening, you know, because people get frightened. I think because they think that what feminists want to do is to reverse things, you know. And it isn't. I mean, not my kind of feminism, not the feminism I believe in. Truly, what I believe is in equality, you know, in equal chances and opportunities for us all, women and men. But this does not happen still. And we still hear lots of, even jokes, you know, small jokes about the place of women, etc., and all of this. Okay.
Anna Luísa, do you have your muse? Or is it undated concept from time when men were writers and women were...
Well, I once wrote 2 essays about this issue, theoretical essays about the place of the muse. That is, in Western tradition, as you know, the muse is a woman that comes to the man's ear. She blows him these small these ideas, right? Inspiration. And he, possessed by the inspiration, because this is all, unformed, right? It comes in this unformed way. So he gives it form and he starts to write, inspired by the muse. We even have in Portugal this, and the muse usually is represented by a woman. We have a statue of Camilo Castelo Branco, all dressed in Portugal, all dressed, with his hat and everything. And then the muse is seated on his lap, all naked. It's a very famous statue in Portugal, in Lisbon, of a famous writer, all dressed, and then the muse naked, sitting on his lap.
Maybe because
Anyway,
of the weather.
so I wrote an essay about this. And what about the woman? What does she do? Is the muse male? Is the muse?
Yeah, so.
You know what I mean?
So what
is
to
it
do
a
with
muse?
it?
Muso in Portuguese. The word musa is. I don't know how it is.
We also could.
You decline it, but we
have
don't.
only muse like musa.
Yeah, we have only one form. It's
Yes.
musa. But is there a musu that is masculine? I don't think so. I think, no, but I do believe in inspiration. That I do. And I believe in inspiration in the sense that it is work, of course, what we do. But there is always that small part which really I cannot explain. When it happens, how it happens. I really can't. And it's a mystery, And I like that idea of inspiration if I connect it with breathing and I connect it with the body, right? Because to inspire, to take on the world and the word, both things, If I were in those essays that I wrote, I don't know. I mean, I said that the muse to women are their bodies. It's herself. But I don't know. This is all theory, What I really like and what I really still believe in is that there is a part in writing, even though people say, that notion of inspiration is outdated, that's a romantic notion, it's only work, it's only officina, only work, nothing else. I think it's that. I think it's reading naturally, because every poet, every writer is a reader, first of all, right? A reader of books of the others too, and an admirer of the other poets and of the other writers. So it's work, it's reading, it's all that, it's technique, it's learning. But there's that small 1% or whatever of something that really I can't explain where it comes from, We have a wonderful line in Portuguese, but I can't translate it into não sei quê, que nasce não sei onde, vem não sei como e dói não sei porquê. It's about love, but it could be used something that is born, I don't know where, it comes, I don't know how, and it hurts, I don't know why. It's about love, but it could be applied to the writing of poetry, I think.
Well, we have one last poem, and it is about your daughter.
Yes.
And
I have
I
a few
wonder,
poems.
maybe your daughter is sometimes your muse.
Oh yes, my daughter is my muse. That's right. That's wonderful.
Great.
Yes. There's even an English teacher, professor from Oxford, who wrote an essay on my poetry titled "Educating Rita." Now, Rita is the name of my daughter, and Educating Rita was a very famous movie, I don't know, of the 70s, I guess it was, a movie of the 70s. So she says, Luísa Amaral educated Rita as much as Rita educated her. So she was her muse. It's very interesting what you said, because yes, this poem is about my daughter.
Okay, so let's read it in Portuguese and then
Okay. A verdade histórica. A minha filha partiu uma tigela na cozinha e eu, que me apetecia escrever sobre o evento, tive que pôr de lado inspiração e lápis, pegar numa vassoura e varrer a cozinha. A cozinha varrida de tigela ficou diferente da cozinha de tigela intacta, local propício à escavação e estudo, curto mapa arqueológico no futuro remoto. Uma tigela de louça branca com flores, restos de cereais tratados, a embalagem estanque, espalhados pelo chão. Não eram grãos de trigo de Pompeia, mas eram respeitosos cereais de qualquer forma, e a tigela, mesmo não sendo da dinastia Ming, mas das Caldas, daqui a 5 ou 10 mil anos, devia ter estatuto admirativo. Mas a hecatombe deu-se, e escorregada de pequeninas mãos, ficou esquecida de famas e proveitos, varrida de vassouras e memórias.